Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at Dystopia V2 from Joker and the Thief. This deck's actually a remake of a deck that was originally launched back in 2016 on Kickstarter, and honestly, it didn't receive a lot of attention at the time. It was funded successfully, but it took a couple of tries, and it didn't get that huge dollar amount, especially when you compare it to a lot of the other campaigns at the time, or some of the big campaigns that we're used to today. That said, the deck picked up popularity in a big way after its release, and now it's one of those decks that a lot of collectors are trying to get into their hands, and it's a really hard one to find. So it's really cool to see that Joker and the Thief brought it forward again with a V2 version of the deck, and just sort of a way to introduce it to a whole new group of collectors. Now, we'll talk at the end of the video about how to tell the differences between this one and the V1 of the version of the deck, but I'll give you a spoiler alert. It's a really subtle set of differences, so it's hard to tell the difference. So if you're looking to get your hands on this deck, I'll say the V2 just as good as getting the V1. But we'll talk about those differences as we get to the end of the video. Let's start out talking about the deck itself. Dystopia is inspired by the film Mad Max Fury Road, and there's symbols everywhere through the deck that sort of pay homage to the battle-torn, collapsed society that's portrayed in that movie. Fury Road's actually the fourth installment in the series, and the deck's a tribute not just to a great movie, but also to a legend in Australian filmmaking in George Miller. I've seen a lot of different movie decks, and honestly, it's sort of a fine line between something that's more like a gimmicky souvenir deck and something that really crosses that line as a unique artistic tribute. But with designer Pedro Oyarbide behind the artwork on this one, I have high hopes for it, so let's get right into it. Starting with the tuck case, it's on a matte black cardstock with three different colors of foil. You see the white, the red, and the gold all on here. And there's some detailed embossing to give the deck that little bit of texture as well. The design work on here is really striking, super bold all the way through. The foil design, you get that dystopia across the top, almost like it's scratched in with that really jagged font. And then the center emblem here is interesting. It's the steering wheel, complete with the speedometer and then the skull in the center. This is, I believe, a tribute to the emblem of the War Boys. The War Boys are this paramilitary group in the Mad Max films. They're a group that almost is a bit of a cult. They worship a character named Immortan Joe, who they've been raised since birth to believe is truly immortal and the one who's going to lead them to Valhalla. And so this is their emblem here, depicted as that steering wheel with the skull in the center and the flames across the top. Really beautifully depicted here with Pedro Oyarbide's style and that really great foiling all the way through to give it that unique look. The bottom here features that scene of the wasteland, the cracked desert on the sides and the road running down the center. And then lots of little details from the stars or the almost lightning bolt patterns on the side. Beautiful tuck case, one of the best that I've ever seen. I think it's just phenomenal artwork. On the side, you get the Joker and the Thief banner, established 2015. Same thing on the other side, lots of gold foiling on that one. And then the bottom, you get the very simple ad copy. That's pretty typical for Joker and the Thief. They don't do embellished ad copy ever. And then the top has just some more patterning here with the chains and the bones, all done in foil. The back here is beautiful as well. Now, this isn't the actual back design of the cards, but it does depict a really unique symbol from the movie with the V8 engine here in the center. And it's embellished with blowers and superchargers and exhaust pipes to kind of give it the look of an angel with the wings going on either side. So it's like a winged engine. This is sort of a nod to the cult of the V8 from the movie, which is sort of a name that's given to the War Boys. Talked about them before, but the War Boys believe that the V8 engine is actually what gives Immortan Joe his power. And so they almost worship the symbol of the V8 engine. You can see that sort of symbolically represented here with that angelic look to the engine. Beautiful red flames surrounding it, and then lots of patterning around the edge, complete with the skulls down at the bottom, the pile of bones, and then Godspeed simply written in the center. Finished up with this metallic gold seal, very simple design on it with just the JT logo, but it's given that die cut look to almost make it look like it's ripped off there. Very cool look to it overall. You get some more foil detailing on the inner flap here, with that flaming skull, complete with the red flames that read Roadkill at the bottom. And then the JT logos on fire on the smaller flaps. And of course, you're going to get some interior foil as well. Foil doesn't just stop at the outside of the tuck box, just foil everywhere. Beautiful gold pattern made up of the skulls, the bones, and even little card pips there in the center as well. And then the JT logo at the top. And hard to see there at the bottom. You can maybe see that glimmer of red foil at the bottom that reads Dead End. So very cool tuck case. Love everything about it. It's nearly perfect in my mind. Really great job on that. Let's see how the cards do though. All right, starting with the back design. Now, much more sort of delicate design on this one, but some of the same artwork themes that we saw on the tuck case, all done in a mixture of super shiny gold foil or gold metallic ink, along with the black and white design. Really nicely done. Features that angelic, if you will, V8 engine there with the wings spread to the sides, but symbolically that engine is sort of chained down to the pillars on the side. And that's meant to sort of talk about the cult nature or the worship nature of that V8 engine, but then also chaining it down because it's a construct of man. And so that's sort of the symbol that's sort of depicted through the deck. And then the pillars are meant to represent the pillars of society, which just like they are in the movie, society's cracked and broken, and so are the pillars. The banners on there read good luck and goodbye, that sort of bleak message or greeting there on the sides, and then the JT logo in the center. Now it's an almost two-way back design. You'll see the engine that's reflected top and bottom, but there's a couple of things that keep this from being a true two-way back design. First is that logo in the center. The JT obviously doesn't reverse. And then one thing that I think is a little bit of an error, I'll zoom in here so you can see it. So if you look in this area right here, you'll see some sort of gold overrun here where some gold ink sort of bleeds into what I think is just supposed to be a black and white section. You don't see that on the other side. So another thing that sort of keeps it from being a two-way back design, and I assume that's actually an error rather than something intentional. It's actually there on the V1 version of the deck as well. So if it is an error, it wasn't fixed with V2. But anyway, the border around the edge kind of has a thick feel to it overall, but I do like how it's organic and just sort of fits in with the design rather than being that harsher border. So there's your back design, really nicely done. Another staple of Joker and the Thief decks are the Joker and the Thief cards rather than the classic two Jokers. And both of them have some artwork that'll be familiar to anybody who's seen Pedro Oyarbide's decks. Always depicts a jester, but with sort of implements that play into the theme. In this case, the Joker and the Thief are both on fire, carrying things like the bones in one hand or the stick of dynamite with the handcuffs there. And then they're each firing off a gun to label themselves as the Joker or the Thief. Done in a mixture of that sort of red along with that gold metallic ink again as well. So cool look to those. You also get a pair of ad cards. One of them is sort of a welcome to the deck, the Dystopia ad card, if you will. Good luck and goodbye, and it has the skull around the outside, and really heavy use of that gold metallic. And the other is a really simple black Joker and the Thief ad card. So not much to this one. This is actually the only card that's changed from V1 of the deck. So the cards themselves are pretty much the same, with the exception of this one ad card that's changed. Ace of Spades is the only power ace in the deck, and it's a beautiful one. Nice large spade pip with the Joker and the Thief banner across the top. And again, that engine there in the center is sort of that main element, but this time decorated with a skull in the front. The beautiful wings expanding up and kind of giving that feel of the overall spade, that classic spade shape. Really cool look to it overall. Again, kind of little hits of gold metallic in there to give it that extra little bit of shine. And then nice pip and index in the corner. And only on the Ace of Spades, that spade pip is embellished with a little skull in the center. So very cool look to those. The number cards on this one are relatively simple. You'll see some little speckling in here to give it that sort of slightly weathered look. Same thing on the pip and index in the corners, but nothing too special on the number cards. They're pretty classic, easily usable cards overall. The black cards are your classic black. The red cards are a little bit oranger, if you will, and you can see that slightly jagged shape to the pips. But like I said, all easily recognizable, just a very slight color change from what you're used to. The other aces have slightly larger pips in the center, but they're pretty much the same shape as the others. The speckling pattern on this one does change from pip to pip, so it's kind of keeps that unique feel to it overall, but nothing too special on the number cards. And then we get into the quartz. And again, if you've seen Pedro Oyarbide's decks before, you'll recognize the style of the quartz, but I really like how it's done here. Lots of detailing on these, a beautiful sort of gold abstract patterning in the back to kind of form a backdrop for the characters, and they're beautifully illustrated. And all of them have elements of them that kind of are tributes to the weapons or the vehicles or the sort of just skeletal pieces that kind of bring to mind parts of that dystopian movie. So like here, the Jack is himself a skull clutching a dagger in his hands, or the Queen with that exhaust pipe in her hand, almost like a staff. That's a really cool one. And then the King here with his skeletal arm pointing off into the distance. All of them are unique, so as you go from suit to suit, you'll get lots of different elements. Everything from just the classic and sort of dark and bizarre with the skull there stabbing through the Ace of Diamonds, or the kind of more serene, like the Queen of Diamonds here with her scepter in hand. But very cool, and it's just cool to see this sort of variation throughout all the cards, just like the movie where everything is sort of cobbled together in this post-apocalyptic world. All the cars and everything are cobbled together from bits and pieces. It's cool to see just the sort of almost randomness throughout the deck. And my favorite card has to be the King of Hearts. I love the steering wheel in the center, the suicidal king with the gun to his head as well. Just a great flow and feel to this one overall. And that is the deck. As far as handling, these are printed by USPCC on a nice crushed stock, so super thin, and they handle really nicely as well. So no complaints whatsoever on the handling. They're gonna work great for you overall. And that is the deck. Great collector's deck, but I think one that would be a lot of fun to use for gameplay. Now, I promised we'd talk a little about the differences between the V2 and the V1 versions of the deck. So I have a V1 version of the deck here, and at first glance, very, very, very similar. And I'll say most of the differences are on the tuck case, and really the primary difference is going to be the color, that gold. You'll see this one has a little bit more yellow, or this one's a little bit brighter, kind of paler color to it. This one has a little bit more orange to it overall. So a slight difference there. And then the other difference is the embossing. So this one is an embossed tuck, whereas this one is just foiled and just has a smooth feel to it overall. And for me, the V2 version really does improve on a lot of elements. With the embossing, you'll see a lot of the details. Like if you look here at the center in the skull, a lot of the details just pop out a good bit more with the V2 version of the deck compared to V1. But overall, same design elements throughout. You're not going to see a whole ton of difference. There's a couple other very small things, you know, the fonts on the ad copy at the bottom, slightly different. The size of the seal here, the seal, if I put them side by side, you'll see just a very, very slight difference in the size of the seal, where the V1 version of the deck has a slightly larger seal, but we're talking very minor cosmetic differences overall. Cards inside, for the most part, are pretty much exactly the same. So not too much to speak of. So if you want to get a hold of one of the decks and you can't find that V1 deck, it is a hard one to get. V2, I think you will get just as much, and for me, actually does it a little bit better with some of the cleanups that it does, while still staying true to the original design. But anyway, that's it. That is a look at Dystopia V2. Hope you enjoyed this one. I think it's a great deck. Pedro Oyarbide is a phenomenal artist, and Joker the Thief really produces some beautiful decks. But even among those, Dystopia is my favorite of them. So glad to have this one in the collection. Limited to just 1,250, but I'll put a link down in the description if you want to pick up one of the last few that are available on the Joker the Thief website. Anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.